At 7, I wrote my first suicide letter. I remember just being like super depressed and
Wow.
anxious. And but at the time, all I wanted to be was a pro motocross rider. That's like, I mean, still to this day, I wouldn't mind it, man. That'd be pretty nice. But
For sure, right?
that's all I ever wanted to do. Started racing bicycles at 2, started racing motorcycles or riding them at least at 4, and then did that with my dad. And so looking back at that now, like it's a whole different perspective. As a father, I was
Mm.
actually just cleaning up a little bit of like drool for my daughter that I was just holding. She's 5 months,
Yeah.
and then my son's 4.5, almost 5 years old. And so it's very difficult, man. Like I remember just wanting the approval of my father. And I
Hmm.
think that's a big thing with guys.
Nicholas, you're a husband, father, best-selling author, entrepreneur, speaker, coach. You're the founder of King's Brotherhood, and so much more, man. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I always appreciate stuff like this. I remember I was like 17 years old. I was 60 pounds heavier than I am today. And for people that are video version, you probably can't hear in my voice that I lost the weight, but you probably see it. Lost the weight. And I remember just one kid telling me about what he was doing and that he was a boxer, he had a trainer, he was eating differently. And when I heard that information, because at the time, like there was YouTube wasn't big,
Sure.
all these other platforms weren't out there. So when he told me that, that little piece of information in his journey completely changed my life forever. I literally left there, and in 2 weeks, I lost 11 pounds. In 6 months, I lost all the weight.
Wow.
And I remember staring at myself in my, not even a mirror. It was, I closed my truck door and I saw my abs for the first time. And I was like mind blown.
Come on.
But it was just that little piece of information. So my goal today would be we have a platform now where we can, for people to actually listen and listen to the very end, it could change your life forever. Don't make it so complicated. Now with information everywhere, people get so used to hearing it that they think it's not going to change their life.
Yeah.
Man, if you, one, like me, traveling to different countries and as a minister, people that haven't heard about Jesus, they're so open, they're so excited. Same with entrepreneurs. When I have new people come in, they take it and they run. And sometimes people that have been around for a long time, they have to remember to be expectant or maybe like childlikeness, right? Like where they just take it, they run with it, they implement. So for the people here, I'll do my best to share the best stuff. For you, just listen, let it transform you and implement.
Come on, man. It's already it's mic drop moment right there, dude. Come on. That's awesome, dude. I like to kick the show up by going back a bit. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Diego, California.
Okay.
Sounds amazing, but I grew up inland. I grew up in like a 1,200 square foot house. My dad bought it. Interesting upbringing because my brother has a different dad, same mom, and
Okay.
track with me here.
Yeah.
Same mom, different dad for my brother. My sister has the same dad and a different mom.
Gotcha.
So brother 6 years older, my sister is 7.5 years younger. So grew up in a lot of like volatility on that side. Like my parents were there, but my mom had to go back to work when I was 2.
Mhm.
Or I think she was at work even before that. She was at community college. So I was in daycare and then I was in preschool. So I was always separated from family. My parents broke up when I was 4. That was
Mm.
tough. My stepmom moved in right away. So it was
Wow.
like, hey, you can call her mom if you want. And I was already at the age where I was like, bro, I'm not calling anyone mom besides my
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
That was like a lot of just volatility, just like feeling uneasy about things. It made me develop tons of anxiety. I remember getting dropped off at school at like 6:30 in the morning and
Mhm.
having to be there all day until 5:30 at night for my mom to come back. Standard, my dad was the disciplinary, my mom was the comforter. So
Oh,
when you
sure.
have those two things out of the household, then the kid's always going to choose to try to go to the comforter
Hmm.
and stay away from the discipline. So that's why I'd always wait. My dad owned a carpet cleaning business my whole life, still does to this day, worked in it for years with him as I was learning business. So he always had things to do and jobs to do and business to
Hmm.
run. It
Yeah.
was super difficult. And so at 7, I wrote my first suicide letter. I remember just being like super depressed and
Wow.
anxious. But at the time, all I wanted to be was a pro motocross rider. That's like, I mean, still to this day, I wouldn't mind it, man. That'd be pretty nice. But
For sure, right?
that's all I ever wanted to do. Started racing bicycles at 2, started racing motorcycles or riding them at least at 4, and then did that with my dad. And so looking back at that now, like it's a whole different perspective. As a father, I was
Mhm.
actually just cleaning up a little bit of like drool for my daughter that I was just holding. She's 5 months,
Yeah.
and then my son's 4.5, almost 5 years old, and so it was very difficult, man. Like I remember just wanting the approval of my father, and I
Hmm.
think that's a big thing with guys. And I can't speak to girls, but I can speak to guys. And having a men's community, it's very big to, if you don't know God, then it's easy to look at your dad and crave this level of acceptance. And we saw that with
Yeah.
Jesus when he was baptized, it was like, this is my son who I'm well pleased. Before he did or did ministry, he had an identity and God was pleased with him and who he was and not the things that he did.
Hmm.
But for us, we think if I just do these things, then I'll finally get that approval that I want that's not really supposed to be from a person. So for my dad, I thought if I was the best motocross racer in the world, he'll finally be happy. He'll love me. He'll
Yeah.
accept me. My dad was pretty aggressive, a German household. So it was
Okay.
a lot of threatening, being thrown through the wall, thrown through the roof, wasn't allowed to talk back, yes only, all that
Whoa.
stuff. It
Yeah.
was super difficult. And it got to the point where I was 13 years old, and I remember going, I'm going to get the approval of my dad. I'm going to go
Hmm.
tell him I'm going to be the best motocross racer in the world, which was my dream, his
Hmm.
dream as well. So think about how far this goes back. My
Yeah.
dad got his first motorcycle. He bought it through a paper route. The only thing he ever got from his dad was a tire for Christmas. He worked for everything that he had. His dad went to one race and he crashed and broke his collarbone. And his dad was like, what is this? This is not cool. So he fails in front of his father and
Hmm.
never supported him throughout that journey. So my dad has this like bucket list goal for his life that he's been chewing on until he had his son.
Wow.
Pours it all into his son. I got a motorcycle when I was 4. I didn't even know if it was real, right? I got on the motorcycle. Think about this, under the Christmas tree, Yamaha little motorcycle. My dad pulls it outside, starts it, puts me on it. I full throttle, go straight down the driveway,
Yeah.
across the street, smack the curb, and fly off the front of the bars. It's my first experience on a motorcycle because they never showed me where the brakes were.
Yeah.
It was just like full on. So my dad had this huge thing, right? Of like, imagine dreaming about something your whole life and then giving it to someone else who's never dreamed about it
Mm.
and wishing
Yeah.
that they would want it as much as you
Wow.
did. And I
Yeah.
loved it, but I didn't sit there for 20 years dreaming that I'd ride motocross. I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And so I remember going, okay, well, that's the way I get my dad's approval. I remember my room was the last room down the hall. I followed him out through the kitchen into the garage. My dad smoked and drank quite a bit, so we'd always do it outside. And I remember right when we stepped into the garage, I said, Dad, I want to be the best motocross racer in the world. Let's go get tutored. Let's go on the road. Let's make this thing happen. And I remember him looking at me and I thought he was going to be like, son, this is what I've been waiting for, like this is what I've been dreaming. And he looked at me and all he said was, you'll never be the best.
Wow.
And I remember it just crushing me as a young kid, like 12, 13. And that's really what made me hit rock bottom in that moment. I didn't talk to my dad for about 3.5 years.
Wow.
I played video games and put like 400 days played on a video game in high school. I have a whole different perspective on that as well because it kept me from sleeping with girls, doing drugs, all these things. But at
Sure.
the time, I gained 60 pounds, and that's when I was overweight. And I became ashamed. My
Hmm.
dad always told me if you can pinch an inch, you're fat. So if you can grab your belly and pinch an inch of it and you can grab it, then you're overweight. So then
Wow.
it was like hiding, ashamed. I remember my dad coming to my house and like knocking on my mom's door to come see me. And I'd listen to him for like 30 minutes and act like I wasn't home. And so that was a very difficult thing. And it really wasn't until I met that kid and I lost the weight, I started getting this like confidence back that I could change my situation. So think
Hmm.
about this. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he in his autobiography, I think that's what it's called. I barely graduated high school, 1.8 GPA. And it's crazy because I'm looking at this beautiful house in Scottsdale and I'm like, I don't deserve this at all. This is crazy.
Come on.
Glory to God for that. And
Yeah.
so I remember reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's book because I heard it was amazing. And one thing that stood out to me is that he used to cover up his entire body, all the best parts, because there's a thing like bodybuilding syndrome where guys will literally only work out the things that they can see in the mirror. So they won't work out their back, they'll work out the front because they're like, I can only see that in the mirror. And so he'd cover up his biceps and his pecs and all that stuff. And he would only work out with his calves exposed because that was his weakest part of his body. And
Wow.
his concept of that was if I can see that, then I'm going to work on it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, that's so interesting because when I didn't know what to do, and as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to hide these areas of your life that you're not good and try to just show the world talk, like I'm going to build a business to 10 million and sell it. And we talk it and we go home and it feels good, but we never experience it. We only experience it in our mind and we
Hmm.
hide the problems that we have inside of our life. And I didn't know how to change my situation. So I used to wear a sweatshirt every single day. I used to wear logos on my shirts so you couldn't see my man boobs as much, hide everything that was bad and try to show the things that were good.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different mentality when I noticed if you know you can change your situation, you're not afraid to expose it and work on it. And it was a completely different mindset. So I lost 60 pounds, ended
Wow.
up reconnecting with my father through that. And then shortly after, ended up having a life transforming moment. I had a dad that drank a 30 pack of beer all the time. Parents split up. None of them were Christians. Ended up going to some Bible study on accident. I thought it was a live music, to be honest. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. My friend's in a band. He's going to small group is what he called it. Small group.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it must be like drummers and guitar people. So I
Sure.
go there, they're studying a book, three kids, talking about miracles. And at the time, I had really gotten into this weird demonic kind of, literally demonic, like trying to speak to demons and spirits. And so
Whoa.
I go there and I hear about this powerful God, and I was like, this is pretty cool. They were like, oh, this is scary. I was like, dude, this isn't scary. I go to grave sites and pull out Ouija boards, bro. Like, this is not scary for me at all. And I just remember just feeling this conviction all week, dude. And I was like, 1.8 GPA, lost the weight, kind of early on recognized that I lost the weight. I look good, but there's still got to be something more,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of guys, it takes the career and the kids and the wife and the family and the house. And then they're like, wait a second, I'm still not happy, even though I have all the stuff. Like, this is freaking me out. And they have this like midlife crisis. For me, I had the
Sure.
midlife crisis at like 17, 18 years old. I was like, I lost all the weight and I'm still trying to search for something that gives me fulfillment. And
Hmm.
so I ended up, they told me if I go back, I get a Bible. I went back. They were like, do you want to accept Jesus? And I was like, dude, made me wait all week for this. Like, I've been already repenting in my heart and telling people lies that I've been telling. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, man, that changed my life forever. Like, I
Mm.
literally had a different heart, different mind. I became a different person and ended up going to ministry school for 2 years, met my wife the right before the first year, got married at 20. She was 18. And after ministry school, God's like, start a business.
Wow.
I just went to ministry school for 2 years. I thought I was going to be a minister. Why am I starting a business?
Yeah.
And that's tough too. Like for the Christians out there, I thought it was going to be easy. Like God said, start a business. So it must be like easy. And I just watched an election, dude. Like, think about this. Trump had to become a billionaire, have the best selling or the best number one ranked TV show for like 12 years to get elected and get ridiculed, and then lose the second election and get ridiculed and go to court and all this stuff to run again, and realizing that it's because he didn't give up. And in Galatians, it talks this about not losing heart, because
Yeah.
if you don't, like at some point, you're going to have that breakthrough. And to see him have that breakthrough now is sitting there going, man, would I have been able to go through that opposition, especially if I felt like that's what God told me to do? And
Yeah.
I don't know his situation. No, he had a big capacity, dude. I don't think I would have, I'd have been like, I'm off track. I'm going to get back to the business stuff. Maybe I just missed this whole presidential stuff.
Sure.
And for 3 years, I didn't make any money.
Mm.
Like 400 square foot apartment, no AC, no job. Her parents had a 5,000 square foot house. Probably were like, dude, what is going on here? And it wasn't until I started investing in masterminds that's what changed it for me. Invested money I didn't have, went to a group, had people believe in me, show me what they were doing, learn stuff. Went out there, did $26,000 the next month after 3 years of failing and not being profitable.
Wow.
And went to my dad. I was working in carpet cleaning at the time, making 20K a year. And went to my dad, said, I got to go after this. And he said, go for it. You can always come back here. And I was like, that's my biggest fear, Dad, is that I'm going to come
Mm.
back to carpet cleaning.
Yeah.
And it was 14 months later, I was doing $140,000 a month. I was 20, I'm 32 now. This is probably like 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And dude, that group changed me forever. So I've just been on this pursuit of consistently surrounding myself with people that I can adapt to. At the time I was doing like 3K a month, and I was around people that did 10K a month. And then I got around people that did 10K a day, and I was doing 3K a day. And I was like, it's literally the same. I suck still. I just suck in a different group of people. And then it's just been a mission of mine, of being a Christian. It was tough to find Christians to be around. And when I was around non-Christian business owners, I just started adapting to the business, but I also started adapting to the lifestyle. And that freaked me out. And so
Sure.
that's what made me create King's Brotherhood, is going, how can I make the number one mastermind for Christian men on the planet and really have us build our businesses, but do it in a biblical way where we're growing in faith and health and relationships and business, or the mission that they have, all at the same time. And
Yeah.
that's for me. I was 60 pounds overweight, no faith, didn't have a girlfriend until I met my wife, and then failed in business for 3 years. I did not have the resume of a four-dimensional businessman, yet I was not willing to decrease my standard. I wanted to raise the standard of my life to what I
Mm.
believe biblically was said. And there's a process for wealth. It's like the original word for worship, or at least work,
Yeah.
abada, also directly translates to worship. So,
Mm.
okay, my work is worship. What's the purpose of work?
Yeah.
Well, the purpose of work is to create wealth. Well, what's the reason for wealth? Well, to create freedom. What's the purpose of freedom? The ability to worship. God told Pharaoh, "Let my people go so that they may worship me." They
Hmm.
were in slavery, and he says, "Let them go so they can worship." Wow, that's weird. So the purpose of their freedom was the ability to worship and then give back. And so when we have the freedom, we can worship and we can give back, and we can do it through our skills. We could do it through our time. We could do it through the money that we make. And so taking these biblical principles and saying, like, this is the way that you do it, and
Mm.
it's not going to change. All right. The
Yeah.
Bible doesn't change. And that just changed my life forever, man. So it's been this pursuit of um, seek first the kingdom. And that's my big thing from with my son is like, whatever you do, like, as long as you seek first the kingdom, whatever you want to do outside of that is like, it's going to go well. Right.
Yeah.
And Christians have this terrible perception. It's like, if money was so bad for Christians, why, when Satan tested Job, why didn't he give Job money?
Hmm. Yeah. Come on.
No, he took money away from Job to try to
Yeah.
get him to deny God and
Mm.
to blaspheme him. But he didn't give him money. That's so interesting. So if it was so bad and made you so not spiritual, then why did God give him double of everything afterwards?
Yeah. Come on.
Right?
I didn't even thought about that.
That's a very interesting thought. And so I think there's a lot of misconceptions around money as Christians. And I'm like, I can't find any example. I've never found God use an example of poverty to show that he was with his people.
Hmm.
I've only seen that he has used the example of wealth, not saying every time he does, but in Deuteronomy, it says, remember the Lord your God, for it is he that gives you the ability to produce wealth. The point was that they gave them the ability to produce wealth to know that God was with them. So it's an example of wealth in particular, so that God could be glorified through the people. And
Mm.
even that in itself, I can go on forever about the fact that he gives you this skill to create money. And so it's not remember the Lord your God and then he'll give you money.
Yeah.
It's he's going to give you the ability to create wealth. So when you're creating it, don't forget where you got the freaking skill from.
Come on.
Like, not remember him, so it's, hey, I'll give you the skill. Like, I have the skill now. I can make
Hmm.
an egg, right? Like if I go cook an egg, when I was a terrible person, I could still cook an egg and it would turn out good and taste good. Like the skill is there.
Yeah.
It's just remembering where the skills came from, where the breath comes from, where
Mm.
life comes from, where your purpose came from, and not deviating from it because it'll give you the gift. But you got to remember where it came from after you go and exercise it and get all the things that you want.
Yeah. Man. Dude, I loved it. You just shared so much, man, and it was so good. I love that you deep dived into everything there around just the mentality of making money and struggling, man. And like, what was that like for you? Being in your early 20s, all of a sudden you're hitting six figures in a month. Like, is that what was your mentality like in that point? Was there ever like, man, I'm just like gonna go out and blow the money, or were you like, dude, I'm gonna save this money? I know that I'm blessed. Like, was there ever an ego kind of starting to climb up as you're hitting those six-figure numbers?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the ego is even before that, just because
Mm.
I think it's big for people to know that you have your earned identity, which is what you've done. You become a Navy SEAL,
Yeah.
like bless them. Like that's an earned identity. You win a Super Bowl, you've earned that identity. But then you also have your internal identity, which could be like who you are before you even do it.
Hmm.
And so a lot of I think at the beginning, like it was tough for me to be like, I don't have the results to show for how much work I'm putting in and how good I think I am getting at this. And
Yeah.
like the fruit wasn't there. So I think there was a little bit of that. And as I started to build, I would say that that ego kind of left more so. Like I used to love, man, I've spoken at stages of 5,000 people live, and like I loved the attention afterwards and helping
Hmm.
people solve problems. And now, like, I think it's after I had my son, I was like, I don't care. Like, that's not my motivation anymore, is to like be known or
Yeah.
do all these things. And so I think I lost it more so. And I was always big on, it took me a while to enjoy wealth, right? God really talks about that. He gives you
Sure.
not only wealth, but he gives you the ability to enjoy the wealth. And so I was definitely more on the saving side. Even when I was a kid, I started a lawn care business.
Yeah.
I saved up like 3,500 bucks and I put it in my sock drawer.
Wow.
Never, never spent it. My dad told me actually later that sometimes he'd take a loan. He'd come in there and he'd take the money out and then put
That's
it back
awesome.
because he always knew it was there. And so
Sure.
I was definitely more of a saver. My 6-figure month, the first one, I was renting a 10 by 10 room in my wife's parents' house.
Man,
So I
that's
definitely
awesome.
was not overextending myself. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things I had to get over was that I always told myself you don't deserve it, right?
Hmm.
Like when I would not pack my lunch to go out somewhere, I'd be like, you can buy other people food and bless them, but you're not going to eat because you don't deserve to because you didn't prepare, right? Like I wouldn't buy myself a water bottle. I wouldn't buy myself lunch.
Wow.
And so it was actually a lot of like, hey, it's okay to enjoy the things that you're building. And I've just had to be smart with that as well as we've grown other companies and consulted other companies. Like expenses go up and you shoot for the stars sometimes and things don't go the way that you want. So you just got to be strategic as you build and know that an entrepreneur is someone who takes risks greater than normal financial risk in order to create a business or businesses. So
Hmm.
knowing that if you're an entrepreneur, financial risk is an absolute necessity. And also, investing is an absolute necessity. I think the biggest investments that I've ever made are all in the skill set and my network and myself.
Hmm.
Like I, for 7 years of marriage, and part of that I was making great money. We shared one car. The amount of people and guys that I talk to that are like, oh man, for 3 years, I can't go to that event. I can't do that thing. I can't do that program because I don't have the money. I'm sitting there like, at one point, I sold everything out of my house, including all the lights, where I didn't even have lights in the little tiny place I was living
Yeah.
because I used everything to invest in myself. I had one
Wow.
car that we paid 360 bucks a month for because I was like, if I could spend the other money on gaining skills and network and business, like I can invest it in myself and front load all of that rather than having the car and then the skill sets coming way later.
Yeah.
And so that was always the mentality for me was like, and I'm so glad that God brought me through that because I'm able to inspire other people to do the same and
Hmm.
have a reality check of, okay, if you really want to be successful, there was this quote that someone said, like, uh, everyone says they're willing to die for success. They do anything for it, but they won't wake up an hour earlier to get it. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, if you really, really want it that bad, like, what are you actually willing to do?
Hmm.
And I think on the time side, that's easy. But on the money side is something I see people really struggle with.
Hmm.
I was so dumb that for 3 years, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't speak on this podcast. I couldn't speak on stage. I couldn't do sales calls. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no skills, all potential. Like there's things that you're skilled at and you have the capacity to grow. There's things that you suck at, but you can get proficient.
Hmm.
Everything I sucked at, I just had some capacity in some areas. And so I remember like, I don't have any skills. 3 years in, I still don't make any money. I was paying off $100 a debt a month.
Wow.
So I wasn't getting anywhere. And I looked at my life and I was like, what's going to happen? I'm like, I'm going to go invest in a program because I'm a failure even if I don't. So I might as well invest in a program. And if I fail, I'm still a failure, but at least I tried. So I
Hmm.
went out there and invested in a program. And it was like when I got the skills, the talents, the abilities, the help, the console, I became addicted to it. All my events. My very first event that I held, it was 2 years after I got speaker training, event training, finally built the courage to do it. And the first event I did $280,000
Wow.
pitching from stage. And it was
Come
like,
on.
I before that, this is my first multi-day event. I had like 50 one-day events that resulted in little to nothing
Hmm.
besides crying. Like I remember crying a lot.
Wow.
Like actually crying. I'd be like so frustrated. I'm like, Lord, what am I doing wrong? I'm
Sure.
praying, I'm obeying, and none of this is working. It's like, well, it's called co-laboring, and you're meant to learn skill sets and collaborate with other people, right? It's
Hmm.
like it's terrible for a man to fall and no one be around him, but he has a brother around him so that when he falls, he can lift him up. And I think
Man.
that that's so important. So, um, I would say that that's still been the biggest focus has been how can I make sure that the lifestyle stuff, great, but like, can I continue to invest in myself to grow? Because at the end of the day, I can take the growth with me anywhere. It's not based
Yeah.
on the business. I go to any business. Personally, what I'm really good at is sales processes, phone sales, event sales, speaking and selling, front end creating money.
Mm.
So I just went to a company, a real estate company for 6 months. And I got commissioned in there at first to raise capital. I had never raised capital in my life.
Okay.
Second was to build a cold call team. I had never done cold calling. I'd done all appointments. Cold call team, great. Business development, connect with agents, brokers, build relationships with builders, great. And then take over an education product that was losing money and
Mm.
have it do better. And that was the world that I was in. So I was happy with that one. I went in there with the skills that I learned over the years and all the businesses that I've worked with and through the Brotherhood worked with. And I built out a brand new system that I said, this is what worked before. Let's try it in capital. So through Facebook and Instagram ads, it cost me $500 to get 100 grand in funding, $500, and
Come on.
raised $13 million dollars in like 3 months
Wow.
with
Dude.
retail investors. Like pretty much no one's done that. So I go, okay, well, the skill from this transferred with me. It wasn't a good idea that
Sure.
just sold and Oprah promoted it and it sold 500K. No, it was a skill that was created that I took somewhere else and it came with me. That's the coolest part is
Yeah.
that any investment you make in yourself and you grow a skill or a network, you get the dividends of that for the rest of your life. When I couldn't
Mhm.
sell anything, I would have never been able to do this. Took the education company from like 30K a month to I think the first month after setting everything up was like 101,000 cash collected and like $150,000 in sales. Started building the team around it
Come
like
on.
within 6 weeks. Like went from these were $5 million real estate deals. We went from booking 19 offer calls with owners to 80 in a month to the
What?
cold call team.
Come on.
Just taking what works, man. The education's out there. I called the best people
Yeah.
and did the Henry Ford method and said, hey, I know you're the best at this. What's the best way to pursue this and then execute it, right? Just
Mm.
find the best people, get educated, put in the reps, and um, yeah, resulted in 8 figures in profit and $13 million in funds in a short
Come
time.
on, man. Oh, that's awesome, dude. Hey, I want to talk as we're finishing up here. You've got this awesome event coming up, a mastermind retreat right there in Arizona,
Yeah.
in February. Like, what are guys and going to be able to experience when they go to this event? What can they expect? How can they join you at this event, man?
Yeah, so this all started in 2017. And
Okay,
so I remember I had a health company for men, and I didn't know how God was putting this together. This is crazy, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a health company, but it's going to be coaching. So I don't want to talk to chicks because I'm married and I don't want to like get in some weird situation where this chick's
sure.
telling me all about her life. So I go, cool. I'll create a men's community.
Yeah.
Start building that. And I go, my wife is like, she has dreams and stuff, and we execute on her dreams. So she's like, we need to hold an event. I was like, okay, maybe 20 people. She's like, no, let's make it 100. So I
Wow.
failed a little bit. We had 91 people there.
Come
And
on.
so I talked to a guy who's pretty famous now. His name's Alex Ramosi. And I was like, hey, Alex, like, I have all these guys that have already bought our programs. What do I do at this event not to lose money? Because right now I'm like literally losing money selling these tickets. And he was like, dude, what you're known for has been your network. Like, your network's insane. If I ever need anyone, I know that you know the person or have a way to connect with them. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. Like, the 5 year vision for this is to create a brotherhood. He's like, dude, that's it. I was like,
Mm.
people are going to invest to be in a group. Like, that's not you invest to lose 10 pounds. That's like you invest to be in a group. That's weird. Like, that's not going to work. And so, anyway, I put together the Brotherhood. I went up there. I pitched it the very first talk. I just walked up to the event and said, hey, guys, I did a whole training on it. Was like, this is how it's impacted me. This is what I'm doing. It's going to be a men's only mastermind. I'm going to share everything that I have, bring in all my network to teach you guys. And the whole thing sold out. That's when I did that first 280 grand.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, like this is huge. I like this a lot more. And so over the years, man, I've seen guys from the military even. I had a guy join and he built an Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company, $33 million in sales and absolutely crushed it from absolute zero. And
Jeez.
so saw all these guys with these ideals of faith, health, relationships, and business. So I've been doing that forever. In 2022, I made it a Christian community. I was like, can you really be successful without honoring God? Like, I get that his principles work and I'm helping these people make a ton of money. But if I help a Christian make money, like for us, we've sponsored a pregnancy resource center and built a building, gave $100,000 to our church building, sponsored 43,000 kids to go to after school programs, donated $24,000 to Tim Tebow's foundation last year. Like, all these different things that we're able to do because of the money and the impact that it makes. Like
Yeah.
those are kids that are alive and kids that are getting saved and
Mm.
impact that's being made. We just sponsored a golf tournament that all the money went to single moms and because my mom was a single mom. And so I was like, what if I help Christians do this? And so since 2022, my best friend and I, he built the fourth fastest growing company in the United States, Lady Boss, sold it, did $200 million in sales before 30.
Come on.
And him and I came together and said, let's make the best mastermind for business, but let's just do it with Christian men and let's go after it. And it just exploded. I thought it wouldn't work, to be honest. I was like, I literally had to tell the guys, hey, I'm creating a Christian group. I'm not doing the non-Christian one. You guys can all leave. I'm like, this sucks, but like, this is where I'm going. This is where I feel called to go.
Sure.
And God just blessed it, man. Like
Come
we
on.
have guys that own multiple Chick-fil-A's that do $2 million a month. We have guys that do tens of millions of dollars of real estate, people that do multi-million dollars of education programs and coaching and software and all that fun stuff. And so really the whole vibe of the events is God says in Exodus, the men shall go away 3 times a year to appear before the Lord. He'll protect your land, he'll expand your territory. And at the time, they were getting literally like they were in a battle, like they were in the middle of a war where people are trying to plunder their stuff. To
Yeah.
leave their family and just leave them there by themselves, completely like unarmed,
Mm.
is unthinkable. But God said, like, I'll protect it and I'll grow it. You just go. And so
Yeah.
3 times a year, I do these events for these guys to be able to go out. I have guys on a yearly membership or guys that can drop into one and check them out. They all have an end of event money back guarantee. So if they come to the event, wasn't what they expected, get all their money back. They get 200 past recordings of all the experts I've ever done stuff with, 4 calls before the events with all the guys to network, private Voxer chat with all of them. And some of them I even give them my sales course that I sell for 3 grand. It's like 27 hours of all the best sales stuff that I have.
Sure.
And really, it's around 3 different things: connection, build deep connections with the guys, because when you have connections and you can solve problems together, oftentimes guys create connection through solving problems.
Yeah.
So let's get our businesses in front of each other and start solving problems. But we do it through the workouts, we do it through the experiences that we have there. I rent out big restaurants, I take people on cool journeys. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Second thing is around education. I bring in the best speakers that I know of in the world that are all Christians. So they're all growing in those 4 dimensions. I just had John Bevere at this last one that was amazing.
Such a
Brandon
good
speaks
dude.
at every single one. And then collaboration. How do we come together and really mastermind and use our skills, talents, abilities, and resources to push each other's visions forward? Because all I know is that most entrepreneurs right now, they would say it's lonely at the top.
Mm.
That's what they would say, which means that they're doing everything alone. So if you're in a battle, like you see, a great example of this is actually Trump right now. Whether people like him or hate him, what happened this time compared to last is that he's not one guy. It's RFK, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, like all these people in the battle with him, all
Yeah.
fighting and giving all their time. So on the Brotherhood side, think of this. I look at life like a UFC fight. Yes, you could probably do pretty well if you train a ton. But if you get one of the biggest, baddest guys in there that's way above your weight class, like you're going to lose. There's
Yeah.
a reason why people don't do well. And it's very rare that you have multiple titles in multiple weight classes. Yet, if you had 20 or 30 guys that all jumped in the ring with you, what could happen? And I was very inspired. There's a pride of lions in Africa. Uh, Generally, the average weight of a lion is like 400 pounds, and most of them like roam around certain areas. But there's one pride of lions that ended up migrating to the Congo, which is like the most dangerous rainforest in the world.
Sure.
The biggest predator there is the hippo, which is not what people would think, but they're just gnarly. They're insane.
Yeah.
And so, because of the environment, these lions have had to adapt. They're now 550 pounds, which is a massive difference.
Right.
They swim, they climb trees to hunt, like they climb the trees and they look to hunt. And
Wow.
they're the only pride of lions in Africa that actively hunt the hippo. And for me, I have guys that will listen to something like this or come to my stuff that have this massive dream that's like taking on the hippo. And I'm like, even if you're the 800-pound lion, you ain't taking on the hippo alone. I'll tell you
Mm.
that right now. Like it takes the whole pride, but it
Yep.
takes an environment to get you to adapt and grow to get to that point where you're 550 pounds, you got your brothers around you, and you can go after those big goals.
Yeah.
And so every single guy has this massive dream. And my goal is to get them around the right people strategically that have different skills, talents, abilities, and networks to support them and push that vision forward And really, that's the goal of the event, is to create those deep relationships. I've been in weddings since I've been doing these. Every single guy that I've ever seen go through the Brotherhood that's active in business didn't destroy his life, because there's definitely a few that came through and just destroyed their life and made a decision to leave and did
Sure.
bad things. But the guys that have been active, I see every dinner, every birthday, every event that they go to, and guess who's there? All the guys that they met inside of King's Brotherhood.
Come
That's
on.
who's at the events. I just went to a dinner in San Diego with that guy who built the Inc. 5000.
Yeah.
I, the guy literally, everyone there besides one couple, all were in the Brotherhood. He had all met there
Love
because
it,
they were
dude.
deep relationships that they could contribute to each other's visions forever. So
Well,
yeah, it's an amazing event. Obviously, for people that like looking at the stuff, it's,
sure.
you have to apply, you have to be a good fit for it, but it's apply.thekingsbrotherhood.com for people that want to see the cool video and what the vision is. The video on there, I've kept it the same.
Yeah.
Literally, I sat down after the first event where I transitioned the Brotherhood and cast the vision. I went into my office and in one take with no notes, just said, "What is this vision?" And I
Come
clicked
on.
the button, recorded it, and I've never changed that video in 2 years. It's like, this is just raw. It's straight up what we just experienced. And this is the vision, is that we create the most epic business mastermind. It just happens to be that being a Christian and following the biblical principles is the best way to achieve the goals.
Come on, man. Nicholas, thank you so much for your time today, man. I love that story. Like your life and what you got going on, man, is impacting so many men. So I just thank you in advance for that, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast but unsure where to go, you need to go check out erikallenmedia.com. Click on the resources tab there. I will walk you through how to start, launch, and run a podcast. I've recorded over 500 interviews since 2017, and I want to help you launch your podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you catch every show when I drop them. Thanks again. Keep changing the world.